Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Hello, Brandon.
Hello. How are you doing, Kathy?
I'm doing good, except for that little trouble that we had with my computer, which caused us to be a little bit late. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, how are you doing? How was your course? So, are you all done now?
Good. I should be a polished etiquette professional now.
Woohoo! There you
I
go.
I only have one more to do. It's just for my own strengths and security, taking a nice exam prep before I take the state's licensing exam. So pretty excited. Again, following intuition. And sometimes it might not even look like your typical spiritual job or profession. You can bring your authenticity, your spirituality into any of
Right.
the work that you do. So I think it's just going to be a nice blend. Again, I was led here by spirit to do this, and even just showing up to classes and certain things, they just keep pounding in all these beautiful coincidences, and it's wonderful. So it's living proof that you can make the mundane just as deep and profound and beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the thing is a lot of people tend to think that, spiritual or spirituality, you only have to be, you can only be a tarot reader. You can only be this, you can only be that, and I mean, how many times, even in just my, professional life, most of the people that I've met have a sense of that spirituality with them. And I would say a good 90% of my friends, are readers or intuitives or empaths or whatever. Along with, maybe just their typical regular jobs, right? And the field is starting to open up. So this is wonderful. To all of our viewers, who's ever watching, I don't know if we're going live on Facebook. I hope so. I'm kind of scared to check, but
I'll take care of that part.
I think it would be on my Oracle Intuitions page if we are live on there. So we are streaming to multiple platforms today. So if you have a comment, if you have a question, make sure that you please tell us where you're coming from. Also put your name, because I think with Facebook, it only says Facebook user. So we will not know who exactly we're talking to unless we're actually, I believe, in the comment sections or something along that line. So we have, before we get into our guest, if you guys want to book a reading with me. So the readings that we do on our Wednesday shows, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. These are mini readings, guys. They're not, I mean, sometimes, Brandon, that can get pretty in depth with our readings. They can get pretty extensive, but they're not meant to give you like a lifelong path and the whole bit. So if you do want to book with us, you can reach me at oracleintuitions.com or on my Facebook page if maybe you're happen to watch it on my Facebook right now, or through my Instagram Messenger. You can contact me through there. All of it's under Oracle Intuitions. And for Brandon, best way to reach you is?
Hit me up on thedreamteacher.com. You can shoot me a message there, hit the contact page, book an appointment, check out what services I offer. You're not sure what to do? Book yourself a free consultation. You can figure it out, work together. I've got many tools in my tool belt to help get you where you're going. To that point, Kathy, real quick, like you were talking about with us doing readings on the show, like you said, these are like little mini readings. And as the show has become more and more popular each and every time that we do it, it gives us less and less time. So don't be surprised, as the show continues, if the readings are not as long as some of our regular guests have seen. We've been able to go in depth, but just be prepared, that the more and more people we get in, we really want to try to connect to as many people as possible, give you a little preview, taste, what have you, as to what you would get from a full reading. So we may do that here on today's show, right? We'll see how much time we do have.
Yeah. And especially with our guests that we're bringing on. So we are very honored to bring on another psychic intuitive. His name is Matt Buchanan, and we're really honored to have him on the show today. Matt is he's very straightforward with his readings. I actually, adore him. and we're going to bring him on in just a sec, and we're going to and again, if we do have time, we will be doing some readings on the show, but there's no guarantee in there. Okay, guys. So we're going to do the best that we can. So let's bring Matt on. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well today, thank you. I hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, we are.
Doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Shafi, how you doing? Thanks for commenting. Good to see you. So, Matt, now we all used to work on the same platform. We all still kind of, I guess, do work on the same platform, which is how we all met. But okay. Our viewers have probably heard our stories like 1,001 times. So how did you get into doing readings? Like, was this something that you were born with? Was it something that you developed over time? Was it something that you just had this like magic moment to? What was your journey? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, things started getting a little weird for me at 9 years old, around 8 or 9. And the weird thing is I had a real intellectual spike at the time where they had all the children in the county take this test, but then 10 more children at the end were chosen to take a final test. And I was one of those children. And apparently, and my parents didn't tell me this until many years later, that they explained to them that I was some type of genius. And of course, I had a lot of problems in school after that as well. I didn't want to do the work. Anything that I touched, I could memorize it, do it, but I didn't want to do homework. I became a complete flop. There's a lot of problems at home, but other kids would come up to me and they would say they saw spirits around me and stuff. And it was really strange because they would get scared. And of course, there were weird things happening around me. But as I was developing at that age of life, I was also an extreme skeptic. Meaning I started questioning at a very young age things that maybe only an adult would question. And in all honesty, that's when everything got a little weird. But I didn't believe in anything for many years, even though I was incredibly intuitive. I had all the coincidences and the synchronicities. But there was one event when I was maybe 5 years old. Me and a friend went out into we were going to stay in those old tunnels that they used to, put in playgrounds, but they're really like pipe tunnels.
Right.
And there was supposed to be a big storm. Apparently a tornado warning came and whatnot. But as we were standing outside, me and this kid named Alex look up and lightning flashed in a square. And inside of it, so my mom taught me to read before I went into kindergarten. And it said literally, go home. And we looked at each other. We didn't speak a word of it. And we both went home. And I never told anyone until I was an adult, because I really feel like that was the gift. Like, you're going to question everything, but there's going to be a few things in your life that you won't be able to explain. And always being really intuitive. But what led me into it is strange. Even though I studied runes and esoteric things all my life, that was, I used to be a Setian. I was in the Temple of Set. I studied runes in the Rune Guild and all that stuff. I explored every aspect of it. I still remained a huge skeptic. And then I had a health incident in 2018. Even though I had been reading these things for years and learning these things, everywhere I went when I was walking, I kept seeing 333. It was on the taxi cab, on the license plate, on the work truck that, just a half a block down the road. I was waking up and my eyes would pop open. But I had a different, and then I ended up having some health issues where I had to take off of work. And that's when I decided I might need to try to do this for a living. I'm not the typical type of person that does this, meaning I come from a different world and I don't really feel like I have a CDL and I have my real estate. I can do anything I want to do, but I actually like some aspects of it. But what killed me is I look at the 333 thing as not as angels. Literally the sum of that is 9, which is the number of the self. If you multiply that with anything else and add the digits,
9 of Pentacles, like for tarot, 9 of Pentacles is, self. Basically really all the 9s are sort of self in some way, right? I mean, that in itself. Yeah. Interesting.
So for me, that was what led me there. So I did it and I became successful at it. And I liked it for a while. I'm going to be honest with you now that I've been doing it for a while. I'm really good at it. At least some people tell me I'm good at it. But I don't like doing it on the major lines as much because in my private work, I like to deal with the things that happen in our life that are bad sometimes, but we have to transform them into something good. The darkness of life. Like things don't, when people say a light came on, usually I feel like what really happened is that trauma is where the light was. You brought it into the light, but the darkness was your teacher. So when you're on these lines with people, sometimes you get people who you can't help because they don't want to face or let go of something. And you don't feel like you can fully always be as real with them because you don't have a personal relationship with them like you would a private client. And so, and I like working with people who set goals and who can fix things, you know, and actually listen to what and on the lines, you don't see as much of that, you know.
You don't, and you also have to worry about the reviews, which is, a whole different thing. Like you feel sometimes like you're in this place of, I don't want to just say this, because this is going to reflect on, how other people view it or how, other clients are going to view something. And I mean, all three of us, which I know have been very, very honest with clients, which, to our benefit has, we have that way of being able to be honest with the client and say, look at, this might not be that path that you're supposed to be taking. But I do know that, a lot of readers have, an issue with that, not an issue with being honest, but maybe it's the presentation or whatever. But a lot of clients take an issue to that honesty and they don't like it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, but 100 other psychics said, yes, that we're going to be together. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not seeing it, or vice versa. Right. And it seems like there's, it's not the competition that that puts you in a different place, but it's more that that comparison, I guess, is what makes that difference. And when you are able to have that client one-on-one and really talk to them and really feel their soul is what it is, and you're helping them move forward, that is such a it feels like that's where you have this true gift.
And you see them coming back to you and saying, hey, this actually worked out because they took that path. But sometimes I feel like they want me to say a few words and they're going to be magic words to them. Meaning if I say this is going to be, but what you have to ask yourself is why you asked 100 times. Obviously you want to be released from something. And so, and I know you've at least once been held hostage, literally held hostage. That was something very new to me and it really offended me. I had one client do that to me. And then, of course, being more agreeable because they were kind of rotten. Later, I pretty much, they came back to me and I wouldn't read for them because I said, you put me in a place where I felt like I couldn't be as real as I needed to be because of the way you held me hostage. And she got real hostile with me and whatnot. And I just dismissed it, that's just that's the thing. When you have private clients, I have the ability through the system I use to block, to, good behavior is always expected when you're working with people. When you're a slave to not being able to have control over who's coming at you, it mentally taxes you. Wow. Because you get all these very needy people. It's tough on you, it really is.
That's why platform, I think, is so important. When you have a private one-on-one client, it is your job to create that space, right? For them to be, come in, whether it feels welcoming, inviting, informative, intense, however you set up your own business. But it's you that needs to create that space. But when you work on another platform, for example, some of these ones that are online or the phone or phone call, phone lines, they've already created something. And even though you still work for yourself, you're expected to follow everything that platform is built on. And what if that platform, for example, there are psychic companies out there who have little sister apps where it's like pornographic voyeur sites, and then they change all the banners and then they turn it into a psychic site. So it's like you're also operating on that energetic platform as well. So of course, like attracts like, you're going to get some really weird voyeuristic kind of tendency, and that stuff carries through. But when you're private, it has a whole different effect to it. So I think Kathy and I both know exactly what you mean by being held hostage from people.
Yeah. I really enjoy it when clients come to me, privately, and I have clients like internationally, right? And I love it when they say, can I record this? And I'll be like, please do record it. And because 6 months, a year later, 3 months later, whatever it is, they come back and they say, look at, you know what, I happened to find this recording, I forgot about it or whatever, I listened to it and bang on. But that's one of the reasons why I also love doing the live show, is because we're able to have that interaction with people almost right away, and to some degree the validation. It allows people to really see what we do as psychics, as intuitives. And I mean, originally when Brandon had started the podcast and then we moved, here to YouTube, in a way it was sort of, we want to show people what psychics do or what intuitives do. And genuine psychics, genuine intuitive, because we always get that bad rap of, well, I went to a psychic and they charged me like $800,000 to clear off some goofy, bullshit, excuse my language, spirit or whatever it was, or, and you're just like, yeah. That hurts us in the end, as I'm sure you've probably dealt with that as well, Matt, right? In some aspects of your work.
I've had people come to me on the on the larger platform saying someone did some type of karma cleanse and they're feeling weird from it and all these other things. And I'll be like, well, let me give you some news. No one else can do a karma cleanse. It just doesn't work like that, man. What is that? Selling indulgences, psychic indulgences. Pope Pius, the psychic, is going to get you out of your karma. No, that doesn't work that way. You have to work all that stuff out personally. But and they'll ask me about spells and things like that, and I just really don't deal in any of those areas at all. I feel like everything is the building blocks of thought. A thought and an action is a spell. First, to bring something into being, you need to speak it, and then you need to actualize it. There's and no one can do that for you. And anyone who's doing it, I challenge the ethics of it. Even if you can manipulate energy, if you have these people coming and trying to get you to do these various things, you don't even know if it's ethical. You don't know what you're getting involved in. I wouldn't mix my energy with that. No way.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we did have like a hypnotist on the show, and last week we actually had Moira, who's a practicing witch, and really it all comes more or less, in other words, they all said the exact same thing as you. I mean, it really has to come from within yourself, within your own soul, within your own creation. It's kind of like saying, well, I want to create, I want to be a millionaire. And then you turn on Netflix and sit there for 20 hours out of the day. Well, okay. Like we're, like the magic, money fairy isn't going to sprinkle, pixie dust all over you. Like you've got to do that creation. It's the same with relationships. When people say, well, I want to be in a relationship, and we're able to pick up those blocks and barriers or the things that they're holding on to. It's kind of like, you can't say, well, I want to be in a relationship with with this guy. And at the same time, you're like, men suck. I hate them all. Well, I don't know how many guys are like jumping through the door on that one. Same with women, right? Like men will be like, oh, I can't meet them. I can't meet this wonderful woman. And meanwhile, they're all bitches. And you're like, oh, you're a catch. You're a catch. I can't wait to entertain this idea. Right. So, but when you see those blocks, you see those barriers, and you want to help them through that. That's where our job really kind of kicks in, because we're able to see those different aspects within somebody's essence. I want to say essence, because that's going to, whether we look at, the step forward, whether we look at their auras, whether we look at, we have the visions, whether we hear, however it is that, we pick up on things, it really comes down to the essence of the vibration that they're sending out, right? And how do you pick up on things, Matt? Sorry, Brent, I didn't need to.
Okay.
I believe in the eternal power of synchronicity and language, number and language. If you pay attention, some people, they assign meaning all of the time to synchronicity. They're going around looking for the meaning of everything. But if you pay attention, synchronous events are constantly happening. You're constantly speaking a phrase that's also being spoken on the television. Sometimes you think a thought and you're on the phone and say, "Is this Anita?" You drive under Anita Drive. It is constantly happening. So to assign too much meaning to each little circumstance is to get a little bit mathematically off. It just shows a relation that's coming into being at the same time you're thinking a thought or inquiring about something. And it's the same. That's why I like runes, because it's language. It's, in essence, it's language. And then somehow or other numbers will speak to me at times, you know, and I just draw associations. Right. But runes spoke to me most because when I was a kid, you know, I started writing poetry really young, and I won writing contests, and then later I wrote songs. So the runes always speak to me good because they speak in language and symbols. And so a lot of people, they don't open up the same because they look at it and go, well, what's that supposed to tell me? It takes a long time, but it's a little different than the tarot. And most people, that's why I stick with it, because everyone's an armchair tarot. Mm-hmm. And so you get those ones, but this, that. I'll be like, well, it means whatever to the reader that it means to the reader. Some people read visually. Some people read by numbers and symbols and color. You know, it's just, there's so many ways you can relate to the tarot even too, but there's those people that come in and they're like, but I know that card and that's not what it means. I'll be like, why are you coming to me then? I thought you wanted me to read it.
Why don't you pull your own cards?
They stay confounded. They're still confused. Like, oh, I want to learn about that. It's going to take a long time. It really is.
So you'd mentioned there's so many different ways. I mean, one of the craziest things that I've seen is somebody who read seashells. So they essentially found these pieces either out on the beach somewhere close to where they lived. It spoke to them in some way and they gathered them. And so when they would do a reading for somebody, they would go in and pull whatever. I don't know if it was random or they closed their eyes, but they would like scatter them in some way and be able to read based on these shells that she had collected. So what do you think, in your opinion, Matt? What is the common denominator? What is everybody doing despite having a difference of tool or system when they're reading with people?
It's more than likely for me, everything, you know, I'm all into the quantum gravity research and all that. In the end, I feel like any psychic phenomenon is likely some kind of quantum entanglement, some kind of ability. I feel like there's multiple ways we can tap it too. Multiple ways. Like those seashells don't mean anything to us, but your friend has formed shapes and sizes and numbers involved with it, emotions. And that's what's neat about it. Some people don't need tools. I don't usually need them, but they help me to think, like to empty my mind. Sometimes I'm just playing around with cards. They help me to stop thinking until something lands that's there. Putting too much emphasis on the tools kind of misses the point, I think. You know,
exactly.
For most
exactly.
We have a comment. Oh, sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
It almost, you know, like you said, Matt, it takes you out of your mind because you're still an individual person and you're tapping into this realm. I feel that we all have the ability to tap into. It's just some of us have a stronger affinity towards it and interpreting it and understanding it. And whether you're a natural or whether it takes time to develop, I think they can be just as reliable. But I think you're absolutely right. It really does not matter on the tool. The tool is essentially just to get your brain out of the way. And I think that's also the beautiful part of it. And the dangerous part, like you were talking about with tarot, is like if everybody is putting out tarot and they all have the same kind of deck, what one person says can be interpreted one way, the other can interpret it totally different. And it isn't about the card at this point. You know, it's about whatever is being communicated through, because that's our job. We're here to communicate those things. You can pick up on them all you want. You can be the most psychic person in the world. But if you are lost in delusion and you cannot communicate that information, there's no point in you doing it for other people, right?
Absolutely. We actually have a comment from Lisa who says, yeah, I do the same thing. I read copper plates or anything that she gets messages off of it, and it helps empty the mind. And that's exactly it. A lot of people will say, you know, like when I'm reading, I do the exact same thing. It just helps me to focus, right? So it helps give me a direction as to where it is that I'm going. It helps to empty the mind out. Even when I'm doing mediumship readings, sometimes I'll just start with the cards, but it has nothing to do with the, you know, the cards itself. It's just helping me to be able to focus in on something in order to, you know, to tap into what it is that I need to tap into. The cards have no meaning, but it helps me to just empty out this headspace that I got going on. And so yeah, I Lisa says you're just like me. Yeah, like totally. That's exactly how I read. And, you know, even when I'm doing my YouTube videos, you know, I've had people that will say, like, you know, as I'm doing the readings, I'll say something and all of a sudden I'll turn the card over and the card is exactly what I've just said, because of the fact that, you know, it's just that you're emptying your mind and you're able to tap into everything around. And I love to be able to do that. And it's, you know, even people with pendulum, though, I mean, it really has to do with the, it's not so much the tool, it's how the tool is working for you, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to read what Lisa's saying. She says, I always say to the client when I'm reading, I read these cards intuitively just because they're probably so focused on the meaning of the card. And that's exactly it. Like, you know, people, there's millions of tarot readers, right? I could pull up any particular card, you know, here we got the Ace of Pentacles. That could mean 100 things to 100 people. And it's going to really be how you're feeling in regards to this. It could be, you know, and there's really no negativity. It's all about how we're interpreting, right? So yeah, it's
question. It's the context of the question you're asking too. They don't, sometimes they'll say something like that and you'll really, you know, you have to realize when I'm moving, I'm asking these questions inside of my own mind as well. So that's in relation to, like, think of that wonderful South African advisor we know who is also lovely. She reads very visually, and she has amazed me at times with her ability to see things in the card that nobody would normally associate the meaning of. She'll see the cup and say, this person has a problem with alcoholism, and she'll relate to that card in a way that someone else might say isn't valid for that meaning, but she's incredible at her method. So I've been in awe and watched her and then I started looking at things visually too, because I'm more meaning and word. And and so you see these other techniques being used and it amazes you. And she uses a very unorthodox style. I'm sure you've seen that, Brandon. She's very unorthodox in the way she approaches it.
Absolutely. I've run her charts and I can see exactly where this aspect kind of takes in, because she easily can get just absorbed as if she's, you know, diving into that person's water, if their energy were water or something. And she's literally swimming around in it and just picking up on the things that are floating by. And I'm like, wow. This
I love the way you explain that, but it's so true. That's exactly how she does read. Yeah. And,
I think it's so beautiful to get absorbed in the visual aspect, clairvoyance, and clairaudience when you do connect with people psychically. And if you are giving a reading, you know, for me, it often feels like a dream. It'll feel like I have very, very active dreams. You know, sometimes they spell out entire stories like it was a movie or something. And so when I connect psychically, and it's mostly to the people that are like open, the people who are guarded off, you know, I gotta like hack through these weeds with a machete just to kind of get to where I'm trying to go, and I connect with them, at least clairvoyantly. But the people that are open, it's just, I can like, it's as if I'm stepping into their dream, and I kind of get consumed with, you know, what I'm watching and observing. But that's where, you know, you have to really refine what you're looking for, how you're picking up information, and what you're interacting with too. You know, you don't want to step on any toes and be invasive, because I think what I've been finding out recently is that, and I've been seeing it so reactive almost immediately, that when you are thinking about somebody, even any person that just comes into your mind first, right off the bat, you essentially are inviting your energy over there and their energy to here. You're like meeting somewhere else, maybe an astral realm, maybe a psychic quantum realm, what have you. And depending how receptive you are, you can almost engage and interact immediately. So there can be that almost instantaneous reaction. But once you're being invited there in some way, I love being able to get lost and then translate that information back. This is why when we were talking about the being on certain platforms, to me, a really great psychic reading is no questions are asked, and you just dive into that person's energy and bring forth appropriate information that they either may need to see, hear, or what have you. But when you're getting pointed in a direction of somebody's wants, they don't even know if they genuinely want that. Does their soul really want that? Does the brain want that? Does the ego want that? And that's why I think what you're talking about, our South African queen here does such a beautiful job at really diving into their energy and pulling out that relevant information. That to me is like a great example of what psychism really is.
We do that quite a few times on our live show on Wednesdays, where people will just say, I just want a general reading. And we're not going to know what comes through. I mean, they may have a direction of where it is that they think that they want. Mm-hmm. And then surprise, it's like, nope, this is what spirit wants to tell you. And then they're sitting there and they're like, oh, dang. Like, I didn't even realize that I needed to know that. This is exactly what I had just gone through, or this is what I've just done, or this is exactly in line with what has just happened. So do you normally do general readings at all, Matt, or do you prefer to stay within like a confine of some sort?
I like the confine. I don't mind the general reading as long as it's again, when you're working on the lines, you get those with a different spirit involved with it per se. Sometimes it's a novel experience for them. They're sitting with their friends and they're trying to test things. But then you have some clients even on the lines that, like, I had clients that would come in with an hour of time and basically sit silent and allow me to read. And there are clients that prefer that. But it takes a special kind of reader to be comfortable with going through that, because she would largely stay silent and comment here and there as I talked for an hour straight. And so I'll do it, but I mean, I so much prefer not working the lines these days. I think everyone can see that by how much you see my face.
What is
don't bother me. I prefer that, actually. If you want me to look inside and try to figure out what's going on, I don't mind that at all. But
I totally agree.
I've been beat up, man. I've been beat up by the lines, and I come from the trucking world as a background. We just say what it is. You know what I'm saying? And people really scrap in that world, even on the job. You know what I'm saying? And so it took a little while to get used to not just saying it like it is, because you do have to learn how to be empathetic too, where you know people are hurting too. They're having a lot of issues. Sometimes they're taking something out of you that they don't mean to be. When we're angry, we show the worst side of ourselves. When we're upset, and if you don't have that mentality going into it, you'll take too much personal offense.
Right.
But I do the general. If that's what they want, if they want me to just pry into their situation, I usually will.
Yeah. What's your visual process like? You said you don't often like to use tools. What are you doing? How is that happening for you? How do you pick up information for people? What's like your process?
Sometimes I use actual rune cards or runes, but most of the time once you study 24 symbols for a really long time, it's not like the tarot. But I'm sure you, even as a tarot reader, don't you see cards sometimes? Like, don't you visually see the devil card?
I see them all the time. I've done that on the show where I'll be like, oh, all of a sudden I'm being shown this card, but I have an understanding of what it's trying to relate,
It's a symbol, right?
Yeah.
And it's visual. And it's a lot can be said. Listen, the philosophy, I'm real big into philosophy because it teaches you how to think rather than what to think. And the philosophers understood intuition as higher knowing, meaning it is a form of knowledge that you can't fully explain, but it's a form of higher knowledge, because look at the things not only through intuition, but through deductive reasoning. These philosophers found out in a time they didn't have instruments to measure atoms. They discovered atoms just by thinking about things. So a lot of people also don't realize, like I've told people, what do you use? Is it just your intuition? In all honesty, having a good sense of Occam's razor and deductive reasoning also can help you be a good reader as well, because you're not just listening to intuitive impressions. You're also, as a reader who's been reading for however many years, you know the likelihood and the odds of where things are going to go based on the situation and based on human behavior. And you have an insight into that they don't, because you've already worked with so many customers. You pretty much know. You already know the outcome, just based on the type of situations, what they're holding on to. And it's hard because you're like, man, this is the same answer I've been given all day.
Right.
You know?
I
You
agree.
don't want it to be, but when you're seeing those coincidences or those, like you said, those same situations pop up over and over and over again, you get kind of know.
I agree. And I think what makes a really great psychic is
when you can differentiate between
noticing.
that.
What's that?
When you can differentiate between that as well.
Noticing when something weird comes in that totally throws off the script of that normal kind of reading where the situation is similar. It's like, that's what makes the great psych is they it reminds me of a spider on its web. And when something hits that other part of the web, right, you're like, oh, that's different over here. Let me pull this over here. Even though the situation was exactly the same as somebody else, something else different is pinging, and I've got to pull that forward and figure out, okay, what is that other influence here? And being able to leave room for that random stuff. Like Kathy does it all the time where she's like, I don't know why, but I'm just seeing some yellow brick road. And I'm like, oh God, where is she going with this one? But yet it was like literally almost like visually verbatim for whatever, that person was experiencing. Like that was literally right in front of them. I thought that was so interesting. And that's why I think, you got to be open to those kind of things too.
Yeah. I get a lot of visuals. I get a lot of visuals that come through, and I'll just have like no idea what they mean. And I used to sit there in this place of like, well, that didn't make sense, so I'm going to dismiss it. And then I was like, no, these visions are coming in for a reason. So I'm just following them. And they may not mean nothing to me, but they mean something to the client eventually. Like the client will always know what they mean. And so I'm just like, I am just a conduit. That's all I am. I am just going to sit back and I'm going to tell you what I see and leave it there, for you to figure out. Right. Fareed actually had a question here about the law of attraction. I'm just going to read sort of the question here. He says, what do you guys think of the law of attraction? I noticed that the psychic consider it good, and some really do believe in this, but the ones from the law of attraction do not prefer anything like psychic. So, and then he says, it's always positive to realize that you can change negative predictions. But on the other hand, you also kind of want to know what the psychic predicts. So, okay, here's the thing. Nothing is solidified. Okay, so I'm going to start off there. No matter the reader, no matter what. I mean, unless they're looking precisely into a current situation. Oh, he just says, let me fix my question. I wanted to know about your predictions regarding relationships. Oh, okay. Well, we can look into that later, but if we have time. But in regards to his particular question, but I just wanted to say, so, there's been so many times that Matt and Brandon and I have both probably all been in this situation where somebody will say, where do you see this going within this relationship? And you can see a real positive outcome, but you also have a little bit of advice in order to give these people. It'll be like, look, don't contact this person. Just let it be. Let them come to you, whatever it is, right? And they'll be like, yeah, okay. And then I've had this happen. I don't know. This one just really stands out in my mind because I think it's one of the times that it really kind of got me here because they tried to put the blame on me. And I said, look, let this person be for 3 days. 3 days. That's all you need to do. Don't contact, don't message, don't write them, nothing. Let them be for 3 days because I saw that. And I know with my past predictions, it was always like this. If I'm getting a number like that, that means something. And they were like, yeah, okay. I'm not going to. Went out to their freaking car after the reading, because this was in person a couple years ago, and wrote like a 20-page freaking novel on their text and sent it. And then, and then they were like, well, it's been 3 days. They haven't contacted me. And I'm like, I'm actually surprised that you're not like blocked and like they're running for the freaking hills, because if I got a 20-page text like that, that would be the last time I'm ever having a conversation with you in my life.
They just changed the game. They changed the whole landscape.
Yeah. And, when they go against, the advice that's coming through with spirit, it makes it very difficult to, to give that accurate, or, I mean, it's not that the prediction wasn't accurate. It would have been accurate if they had followed that, advice that had come through. So when people ask about things like relationships, or do we feel this happening? And I mean, for the most part, most psychics don't sit there and go, well, I see doom and gloom, and I see this person dying and this person dying. And I mean, that's not a true, what's the word? That's not true to our gift, really. Do you ever have to deal with stuff like that, Matt? Like in your business or anything like that? Like somebody coming to you and saying, hey, somebody predicted that, so-and-so is going to die. Like, how do you deal with that kind of junk?
I get a lot of the people that come to me, and I had one really unload on me one day. They thought this person was their twin flame, which is something I really don't play with. And they thought all of these psychics had led them through this process of life and law of attraction. They had them, with their manifestation boards and things like that. And I said to her, and he ended up being awful. And I said, well, one thing is for sure, that you can't use the law of attraction to overcome free will. It's just not your place.
Mm-hmm.
You can attract the conditions into your life. I really believe you can attract almost anything into your life that you can imagine, as long as it's for the good of your soul's growth, and nothing more. Because you just can't manifest a person. I get that a lot. Like if I'm manifesting him, you're not manifesting. You're just not. He's going to do what he wants to do. Now, you can change yourself. That's all that magic really is changing the individual so they can fulfill whatever it is that they want to make happen. But most people are looking for magic. But that law of attraction, it's all over the place. A lot of people need to realize there are greater things than just making things happen. The mystery of life needs to unfold sometimes, and we need to not know everything. Yeah. Some things aren't meant for us to know, so we learn mysteries as we go. This person said it, or I can manifest it, and I don't mess with it. Free will always reigns supreme, and not everything in the world is meant to be good. Some people will say, do you believe in destiny? I said, I kind of do and I don't. Life is about creating yourself. The late Irish playwright said, not finding yourself. You're looking to find yourself. I do and I don't, because if I believe that you were destined to have this beautiful life, I would also have to believe that it's okay for, a terrorist to strap a woman to the hood with her legs spread and driving into battle. And I have to say that destiny made that so as well. It's a mixture of things. And we're all subject to each other's free will. And to some are, basically things that are going to happen at random. We'll have to make sense out of them. I don't believe in destiny the same way. And I don't believe in one person. I've been in love 5 times, not just one. I married one woman, and we're still 26 years in the game, but I wouldn't trade those other 4 for anything. It was wonderful. It hurt at the end, but it made me able to last 26 years now. So sometimes you have to learn to let go of that stuff that you think the universe wants you to have when you really don't need it. It won't help you grow.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's what kills me about all this stuff. They're telling them that you'll get it if you do this, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
And it may not be, especially when they're focused in on one individual. And the thing is that usually the advice that we can give can also, I mean, it's not only for the betterment of the individual, it may not bring in that one particular person, because there is free will. There is, like, as you had just explained, it's not about destiny. You're not destined to be this or destined to be that. But at the same degree, what's going on with my thing? Sorry. My computer just went nutty for a minute. But in the same degree, betterment for ourselves, it may bring in something that is better for you than that one particular person, right? Some people are so focused on this one person, and you give them this advice, and you're like, look, you know what? Just stay open, because you don't know what's going to come through. You don't know does it have to be this one particular person who's, married and has 10 kids and is an alcoholic? No. How about we move away from this, better ourselves, and allow, something else to come through, something that is going to be truly for you, right? Or
Y'all
better for
are
you.
y'all are bringing up something so incredibly important. When we talk about the law of attraction, and especially in the context of relationships, we have to figure out what we're even trying to attract, right? Like we have to, if we say we want to have, a deep love with
Right.
somebody, what does your idea of deep love even look like? Is it a model off of your parents and the love that they had shared, and so you want to replicate that? Is it modeled off of what somebody else told you should have in your life? What are you even drawing to you is one of the biggest things that I think people completely neglect. And I love what you said, Matt, about life being a huge part of the purpose of life is creation. And so a lot of people, I think, are just, if I don't have this type of love, then I will never love. And so they didn't even create it for themselves. They just have this stuck in their mind as their idea. And then when they don't have it, then they shut down any form of love. Love doesn't exist. It's awful. It's bad, whatever. And I think right there, that is law of attraction in motion. But it's like you're literally doing it to yourself, because you're forgetting the most important ingredient, that you're creating all of this. I think people forget. Honestly, I just don't even think people know. Having a background in studying the subconscious mind, and degrees in hypnotherapy, belief literally constructs the reality that you see. And that's why I love, you also said that earlier, Matt, it's about your thoughts and the way that the mind works. When you pull certain connections or pull information psychically, you are constructing all of this. And what I can't stand is when people come to us thinking that we're going to create their reality. And that's not our job. That's not up to us. We can't be supplementing and implanting things in your energy, your mind, your soul, to try and draw to you. We're just like, we're like your mirror in a way for the things that you cannot see. Some of us are better at seeing in the dark, quote unquote, or psychically, quantumly, however you define it, whatever it is. And that's what we're here for. I think it's beautiful, the perspective that you have, because it feels very practical and mystical all in one, if that makes sense. My observation of how you connect and read, because I've never actually seen you read and know the way that you connect and the way that you talk with others.
I share a lot of experience. Like, I'll give you an example. When my high school sweetheart left me when I was 21. I was with her about 4, almost 5 years. We had lived together for a few years. I left home, kind of early, and I thought she was everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when she left, because she got to a place where I feel like her life was going a different direction, and of course I was really wild, and she had aspirations for school and all these other things, and I created a sort of resentment there. She wanted to stay friends. I couldn't let go. I saw her face everywhere I went. I just felt like for a couple years I just saw her everywhere, and then I end up finding love again. But it's strange. I ended up falling in love with a 32-year-old woman when I was 22, and she had 4 children. And the universe gave me a mirror. I really loved her. But at some point, I realized that her life was at a different place than mine was. And I had to turn around and hurt her in the same way I was hurt, because our life was going different. And that was when a light just went flat. You see, it wasn't easy on her. What you did and the way you handled it was wrong, because she wanted to still be friends and you couldn't handle it. And I still think I made the wrong decision. Now, once I had let that go, I feel like that was when I was ready to meet my wife. So I let go of relationships altogether. I was like, we'll just leave this for a while. And just like that lost object in your house, you look for over and over again and you can't find it till you sit down and you're not looking. My wife appeared and she was completely the opposite of what I thought I wanted. But I had to learn that lesson, what it was like to hurt someone else. It's like I couldn't have been complete to love that way until I learned that sometimes things aren't just black and white. You're just going different directions in life. The timing's not right. Your age is off. You're at different phases in life. It was profound for me because it made me realize, like, this is what it's like to hurt someone. How does it feel? And you're maturing at that age, at least you hope. Guys kind of take it a little longer. But it was a real wake-up call for me. Like, wow, that was hard on, and I felt bad, and that was something I was never able to repair. You have to live with that decision the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, and you're always going to love people that you love. That's another thing. If you love someone, you can let it go to the opposite spectrum of hate if you resent them, but you still love them at the core. It's just you're on the other spectrum. You never stop loving someone you really loved, or otherwise you never loved them. You at least wonder about them. You think about them sometimes in the night. You dream of them. You hope that they're doing well. If you love them, you know, that doesn't end. It just changes form, you know, and you have to learn to let go.
Kathy and I had a beautiful 8-hour conversation the other day, and
as Matt's
kept
talking,
popping into my mind. I'm like, Matt keeps popping into my mind. I'm like, why does he keep popping into my mind like that? And I'm like, these are things that I feel like he either understands and knows, or, you know, has as his own set of principles. And so, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, for being somebody who works as like a psychic or spiritual mentor, advisor in any capacity, how important is it for these people to be honest with themselves, you know, with their own paths, journeys, relationships, etc.? Can you be a psychic and give other people good advice if you yourself are jaded with your own life?
Well, I had a psychic ask me once who was in a bad place in their life, maybe with addiction, things like that, or maybe going through struggles. If you're jaded, I would be a little bit more apprehensive. You have to do some self-work so that, you know, remember one time in the group, I actually brought up misandry. I was seeing a whole bunch of people bashing men, and I said, "Look, boy, I know people are going to follow this thread." So I said, I think this is unbalanced, you know. But one thing that kills me with people not being honest with themselves or me, I don't know how I can help them. I really don't. And if you're jaded, I don't know how you can do good work. But I will say this: when I've been in really bad places in life, I found that actually reading brings me back to my better space. So sometimes I have to actually be doing the work to heal. So you just have to self-examine. Are you in a good enough place? If you're angry, I say that day's a good day to take a few moments and ground, because that brings bad energy to everybody. If you're hurting, sometimes, believe it or not, you're twice as empathetic. You're just bound to cry on your client there because you're feeling things deeply. But you can be jaded and still, but you need to be honest about what you're jaded with within you. That way you don't let that taint, you know, the readings of other people. But I still feel like, you know, but anger is a bad recipe.
Yeah. I've seen that too, is where you're, you know, you're encountering somebody who's claiming to be intuitive or psychic, and it's exactly as you just said. They're very jaded towards you know, a particular group or a particular person or a particular whatever it is. And how do you read like that? Like, you can't. It's you know, it's like, if I hated men, which I do not, how do you read like that? Well, no, they all suck. Just go do this, and just, you know, like, you can't be in that place. Like, you can't, because you're not giving true information. You're giving information from the ego. We have to there's been times where we've, you know, gone on the show, or like Matt said, you know, sometimes it's good to do those readings because it gets you into that different place. And I've gone on and done these readings, you know, and you're in this place of like, okay, I might not be in the best of moods, but I can't come at the client from that mood. This is a job where you absolutely have to drop your ego. You have to drop your whatever resentment, your emotions. It has nothing to do with that. This is for the client and only for the client, and it has nothing to do with anything on a personal level, right? And that's where you really expand yourself as a psychic or as an intuitive or an empath or a reader or whatever. Like, if you're coming at it from this negative place of your own past experiences, you really shouldn't be doing this job. Like, truthfully, you should not be doing this job if this is the energy in which you're coming from.
Yeah,
you find yourself creating those spaces daily too. Like, you doing this work, you will get a routine to relax into your day, or you'll end
Right.
up taking the day off because you know you're not right to do it. So
Yeah.
it brings relaxation in your life the more you work, because you have to relax to be able to do it. At least I do. I can't be in a big
Oh,
old tiff with the wife or anything. I got to get that squared up.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
yeah.
You got to be in a good space.
Speaking of wife, so your wife is also an intuitive, right? She's also a psychic. How does that, how does this work within the relationship? Like, do you ever find that you guys are on different, seeing different things, or do you guys just, is there this click within the two of you that you're so, like, you've been together for a long time. So, what's that word? Is it kind of an empathic energy to when you guys are together and maybe doing readings or with clients or whatever it is?
Well, you know what I found, because even though she's always been really intuitive, it was later I, taught her about runes and taught her some of my private stuff. Like, I don't tell anyone. Like, I have secrets. I have trade secrets that I don't tell anyone, and I shared those with her. And but we're both alpha. She's very alpha, Mississippi girl. So I let her keep her clients and her work. If she wants to share it with me, sometimes when she's in her office and I can hear a little bit, I'll be doing some la la la, because I don't want to be critical.
Yeah.
You understand? I feel like that, and it's easy to be that way. And and I'm not even the one that's on it. So I try hard not to listen in, because I don't want to be critical. If I can hear in the distance, I don't want to know. And she can share with me what she wants to share, because you have to respect privacy too.
Yeah.
And we work in the same places. So it's, for the most part, when we're working, we just keep it light. We don't really talk about it.
What does it do to your own bond together? What is that experience like? That's for two psychics and intuitives to be together aside from work?
Well, it's always been that way for us. We've always been really connected. Like, we feel each other's actual pains and things. Like I'm a physical empath, and I feel that she is too. And so that can make things a little tricky around, everyone has their, things that happen to them in life. Let's say it like that. Before I would say something, get me in trouble. But we feel each other's anger. We feel each other's emotions. So it's really important. At first, when she came home to work with me, it's taken us some time to find balance, because, you're with someone 24 hours a day outside of the time you're in, with the client. So that was the first challenge, and we've done pretty good. But we keep the psychic stuff separate, and we rarely really get too deep into it to respect each other's work. And that's what I wanted for her all along, to have her own thing, rather than me be, even though we're on the same website, we read separately, have separate clients, and there's no overlap. That's the recipe that works.
That could totally be tough, being in the same place, because I'm sure you guys would unanimously agree. What is the one thing you need after you get done doing, like 50 readings? Space. I need to go somewhere. I just need to go chill out. I need to zone, zen, whatever it is. That I could see definitely being difficult if you're both working in the same space.
Yeah. Did you find it hard during the lockdown, especially? Like were you guys? No, wasn't too bad.
My wife and I'm 51, she's 49. At our age, we are still like rabbits. So some days we have to be careful, because now you have more freedom if you don't have any appointments in the morning. With some lines, you don't have to have a schedule. So for us too, we've had to work on actually doing what we're supposed to do with the day. So, what I'm saying? Like, yes, I kissed and tell, baby. But that's how it really is for us. That's why I like the fact that she's working with people in relationships too, because we're here. We can at least, because we've had every fight that everyone's had, and we survived it. So at least we can tell you how to survive it, because long-term relationships are huge work, and everything has to be right. Every single thing has to be right to make it work. But we don't get in each other's work very much. I feel like it's better. It respects the client's privacy, and it keeps me out of being too critical. I'm a real critical of everything type person, so I don't want to make her feel like I'm always criticizing everything and whatnot.
If you had one piece of advice for people who are listening today about one of the most, I know there's many, but one of the most, the first that kind of stands out to you, important things to focus on to keep healthy long-term relationships, what would that be? What would people focus on? What should they do?
Honesty is the biggest, and
Right.
being able to be honest. Also, being able to realize too that sometimes people, when you have a really bad fight, people heal at different levels and at different times. Don't try to, just because you've reached a place of resolution doesn't mean, this is something I had to learn. I resolve conflict. I grew up in a really violent, crazy environment, so I resolve conflict really fast, even if it's something that's terrible. I mean, I can just jump in and resolve it quick, but not everyone does. And sometimes I would rush to solve problems too fast, not allow that person's emotions to kind of wind down. Always remember, let the things wind down. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. But if it takes a couple of sunsets to get there, you're going to be better off than if you try to push it when someone else is not ready. That's the one thing. When those emotions are running high, and it's always over something so stupid. It's never over. The worst fights in a marriage are over nothing. You're late for a festival. That's it.
Yeah.
No, something crazy, or you're not late, and the husband is typical Mr. Anxiety, and he's done escalated stuff. I've been there, and it's always something small. It's never anything of significance. The significant stuff you work through just fine. It's the small stuff,
Right.
and that's what you have to focus on. And always realize one of you is always in a better position than the other. You might be having a good day, and they're not. Recognize the signs so that you understand, to be sensitive to that. It's really just paying attention to that person and really giving a damn. Just giving a damn what they're thinking, feeling. For guys, it's hard because we don't feel as many emotions. I feel like we require less. Like, I don't need as much touch as she does. So she has to tell me sometimes. That's important to me, and we don't require that as much. We don't require as much communication. So being sensitive to that person's need, honesty, and don't cheat, man. Don't cheat.
Right.
Don't withhold. Freak out too, make sure it's freaky enough that you don't want to go outside the home. Find someone that you're real honest and compatible with, someone that gets your freak on. That way you don't feel like if you can express the shadow side of yourself with your partner in whatever way that is, then you got something most people will never have. Start off on that basis with your spouse or your partner. And I guarantee you'll never have any issues as long as you're honest, open. And it doesn't matter even
being vulnerable.
Polyamorous ones.
A lot of people don't even realize how important vulnerability is within relationships, right? Like they withhold, and they might be honest, but they're withholding at the same time. And it's that vulnerability, allowing somebody, like you said, let them see you get your freak on, like in some way. Be you rather than being a version of yourself.
And don't create unrealistic expectations of them. If you're going to let your freak out, you got to realize they might get comfortable enough to let theirs out. You need to be respectful.
Well, you hope that
people, the only reason they don't let theirs out is because they're afraid if the other person does, that it makes them less pure or something. When in fact, if the two of you just go on the whole dark side with it, in your private time, you're going to love each other for life. You're going to respect that. It takes a lot of honesty. No one can tell me with time, and not that I'm this person that really emphasizes intimacy, but I'm telling you, I've noticed in the past, if you guys are, if the house is rocking, then everything's going real well at home most of the time. You know what I'm saying? You're getting along, and so that to me is also really important too. You can't just have a relationship where you don't make time to meet each other's needs.
Yeah,
and even kind of just be open and honest. Don't judge that person for their dark, or you'll never know their dark side but one time. They're not going to tell you anymore if you criticize them, or if maybe they have something that they've buried that's hindering them. They can't be honest with you. You're never going to find out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be freaky, and be freaky and be available for each other.
That's so beautifully put. I love it.
How do you feel, Matt, about taking a couple of questions? I don't think, guys, that we have a lot of time to, sit here and, get into a lot of readings, but we could probably do a couple. I was thinking maybe what we'll do is we'll kind of take like a couple of minute break, a 3-minute break. And if somebody, I'm thinking 3 questions, the first 3 questions maybe that come in. How do you feel about that? You're okay with
We'll
that?
try.
So
I've never
we'll
done
try.
it on live TV, but we'll give it a shot.
Cool.
It's so that's what we'll do is, so the first 3 that come in the next, couple of minutes, we will take those and we'll see what happens. But I am going to just put it on to a little bit of a break because, usually when I have these shows, I always have 1,800 cups of coffee beforehand. So, but we're just going to go into a 3-minute break, guys. We're going to be right back. And then when we will take a couple of questions. Okay. So we'll be right back. Thanks. Hang on. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much, Brandon, for kind of watching over the chat. So we do have a couple coming in. We have Fareed's coming in. So Fareed, because we know you're watching, waiting for this question, can you please give us the names of the people and also birth dates if possible? And, is, I guess, a little bit more information. I don't know if you need that, Matt, or like, do you need names and birth dates? Does that help, when you're doing
Really
readings?
names and questions usually. I don't really mess with the astrology, so the birth dates usually don't mean as much to me.
Okay. And so, Fareed, if you can put that down, at least their birth date. Well, what day they were born. Or yeah, what you don't maybe need the year, but at least the date or at least the people's names. And then we have a couple more coming in. So again, we're only going to just take 3 of them today. Matt, could you give us your website if people would like to contact you for a personal reading? How can they do that?
I am at hawkmoonvisions.com, HAWKMOON.com, hawkmoonvisions.com.
I actually did put it into the description box, guys, below as well. So if you would like to contact Matt, thank you, Brandon, for that as well. I did put it in the description box. So absolutely. So Fareed is wondering about Zenon, who is a Taurus. He's a Taurus, and Fareed is a Gemini. And he's looking into what the feelings and the actions could possibly be in the upcoming future.
This feels like something. One of the things that comes to me is a runic symbol that means Isa or ice. Whenever this one comes up, it can mean like you're being a little hesitant in some ways, or it's something that's not getting a lot of traction. It can also represent someone who's a little shy. Oftentimes, the Isa rune represents, a fear of something, kind of like looking on a shiny piece of glass. I mean, a piece of ice in the road, and it shines like a diamond, but you know to walk slowly. So I feel like with her, you're dealing with someone who's not really extroverted. So you're wondering if the signals that you're seeing are getting across. And what the potential here that I see is really good. Whenever the sun symbol, so wheel is there, it represents something that has potential to grow. The sun is the source of life for everything. So whenever I see that, not only do you have love, but you have that potential for growth. And 2 other runic symbols I see is the daylight, Dagaz, and Jira. The Dagaz represents 2 people who bring hope and understanding to each other's life, and the Jira represents harvest. It means to plant seeds that even if you don't tend the ground as much as you should, will bear forth lasting fruit. So I honestly feel like this is a good match. It's just you're going to have to get past the fact that I feel like she wants more of the moves to be on your end. Like she's not extroverted. I feel. And sometimes that can feel like rejection, but I don't feel that's what it is. I feel like it's a little bit of fear.
I would have to agree with that, honestly, because that's immediately what I was picking up on was this weird, not lack of acceptance, but almost as if it was like being blocked out. So that hesitancy, that energy is absolutely something I immediately picked up on. It feels like there is some kind of emotional changes here. And I don't know, maybe this is, again, is that same energy. It just feels like some kind of hurdle has to get over to accept this sense of abundance flowing in. Oftentimes, a lot of times when you come into a feeling with strong, or a connection with strong feeling and emotion, we don't know how to receive that, right? Like we don't know how to always accept those swing of emotions into our life because we feel like we need to be rigid. And especially you said he's a Taurus. I know Tauruses, they may be very emotional, very sentimental, all absorbed with pleasure and sensation, but sometimes emotions can just be overwhelming and too much. And so it does really take time. So I'd have to agree here with you, Matt, that it seems like something wants to come through here. But I think time might be of the most importance in this situation.
I feel that there's a lot of patience that is going to be needed, Fareed, off of your part. So the first thing I'm actually getting here is absolutely, I just keep feeling this energy of being pushed. And so this would be from his side, like Zenon's side is this pushing feeling. And I feel like this is a person that's taking their time to, I get the best word to use is kind of blossom, or to come out of a shell of some sort, or to allow feelings to come in. And I feel like if there's any sort of energy that is pushing against his natural resistance to open up, that is going to cause a problem. Okay. So as much as you want him to open up, I feel like there needs to be a slower progression towards it. I agree with Matt and Brandon. I feel a really good energy here. But again, there needs to be a slow progression towards it. So even if it's frustrating towards you, what I keep getting here is that this is actually sort of a lesson for you too, Fareed. Okay. This isn't just, to bring the two of you together. I feel like this is a lesson in patience going towards into the future for the two of you. There's things that you're going to have to learn through this process in order to make this a successful relationship. And it's very much like Matt was saying, is like having that communication with each other, understanding how people relate with each other, different aspects along that way. And so as you're going through this process, this is teaching you how to have that long-term relationship with him. Yeah, it feels like things will change for the better. I do. But again, it's going to be that process. Okay. There's going to have to be a slow progression towards this. This is what really keeps coming in, I believe, for all of us, really.
I want to add real quick, based on Fareed's questions earlier, I'm wondering if he has been trying to do all these law of attraction things to bring this person back to him. And I think what's really important, because it seems to resound in all three of our messages, is that acceptance of where things are is going to be key. Sometimes the more that you force something to happen, you push that person away more, right? Like you're giving too much, and that person feels like, oh, there's no room for me here because there's already all this other stuff happening. I think really having that state of, okay, so we are not, where we were before. I have to accept this. It allows room for things to breathe. We need that space sometimes. You can't pot a plant and then when it's like removed, expect it to still grow while you're, trying to put all sorts of other things in there. You have to let it do its thing.
Yeah. And to answer your question, Fareed, yes, you do need to be patient in this situation. Even if you're not seeing a change, here's the interesting thing, and this really has to do with the law of attraction, is we may not see what is happening underneath the surface. Okay. A lot of people expect that when we're putting out a, manifestation or whatever it is, we're kind of expecting it to go like this. Oh, there it is. It appears, but it's not like a genie coming out of a lamp, right? We don't rub the lamp and it just suddenly appears. When we're manifesting, it's a matter of planting those seeds, but also, as Brandon was talking and Matt was saying, about allowing it to grow. Like we have to let this develop. We don't know what's going on under the surface or how somebody's changing or developing or what mindsets that they're releasing or what blocks or barriers they're letting down in order to create this relationship. We're only looking at it as the manifestors as, well, it's not happening right now. So I'm getting frustrated and I'm just like this and I'm like this, but we don't know what is happening and what steps need to be taken in order for something to develop. And I have compared this before in the past to making bread. Okay. It's such a simple analogy, but really, you put the ingredients together, the bread has to rise. You have to put it into the oven. There are steps. If you were just to pull that bread out after it rose, and stuck it in the oven for 5 minutes, you're getting gunk, right? You're just getting a ball of crap. And so that's not what you're wanting. You want the actual full loaf of bread. And so you have to allow it to develop. You have to allow it to, cook and be baked and go from, a ball of yeast to actually, bread. Right. So I hope that that's helped. And do you have anything to add to that, Matt? Or
I wanted to say that a lot can be said when you're trying to nudge a situation where someone's hesitant. Communication without expectation is magical. People often get mad if someone doesn't return their message. But when you say something to someone like, I thought of you today, and that thing we talked about, it made me smile, with no expectation, you've given them a gift without expectation. And it draws people more. It also kind of puts a little mystery into the mix. And don't let anxiety overtake you. When you're hooking and booking, you got to be playing the game. And so make it more about them. You got to let them feel something without expecting something. And little by little, that draws a person out, because they know that it's about them and not just about you.
That is such a good analogy, you know, and it's funny because we have told clients that in the past is where, you know, when you're sending something out with an expectation, when you're sending, hey, I hope you have a great day today. And then you're sitting there watching your phone going, they're not responding. They're not. Are you really saying to them that you want them to have a good day? Or are you just somehow trying to manipulate a situation in order to get a response? Right? So that does make a huge difference within the energy. Are you doing it? And as you had said earlier, are you doing it out of love or are you doing it out of ego? And that's something that we really need to start taking a look at as people.
Yeah.
So, you know, on this human realm that we're all walking through.
Well, thank you, Fareed, and good luck. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, and thank you so much for watching. So we did have one coming in from Melody, and Melody is actually asking, "What?"
Well, before we get there,
go ahead.
I feel like it's appropriate since Melody has come up. Will you tell us a little bit about your music, Matt, and what you do with that?
Yeah, I love that.
For years, I started off singing in churches when I was younger, and then later I started doing festivals, local. Placed pretty. I got top 5 in one songwriting contest. I placed in an international one.
Nice.
But, I mean, what I really liked about it was the creation side and the festivals. I got real disillusioned with the bars. You can find a lot of my music under Matthew Buchanan, like Matthew Buchanan Spaceship Ride. And then I used to have a page on my website, but I've muted it for now, where I let everyone download everything for free because I don't really like to go into the bars to play. I have plenty of hookups and opportunities, but you know, aside to COVID, but I just don't like it anymore. Like I have to be sober to do that. But festivals, if they ever open it up again, I will be all out all over again because it's a great way to get out.
I'd love to write a song with you. That'd be awesome.
I think it'd be cool. We should do it, man. We should try to come up with something.
I got books full of song and poetry. I love writing. It's been a while, but it's still there. Still make up my own everywhere I go.
Well, you're probably like me. Everything comes out like the cat in the hat.
Yep.
I just want to say one thing here. For those of you, this is okay. So I'm actually, you know, I don't want to have to block anybody, but this is literally just for, we're not here to be your personal DM system. So I'm blocking some of the comments. And if you know, want to, you know, want somebody to comment or whatever, you can do with that on another platform, but that's not what we're here for. And we're not going to take, you know, hundreds of comments on, please comment, you know, DM me. So we're just letting that go. I just wanted to say that I did have to block somebody because of that, because we're not a personal messaging system and that's not what we're here for. And I don't have a lot of tolerance. Most people know that for
this is a safe space.
Right. It's a safe space. Yeah. And my tolerance level for crap is non-existent. So just to get to, and actually in regards to that, Matt, I've heard you play, you know, you've been on Facebook, on your Instagram. Absolutely beautiful voice, beautiful melodies. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It would be nice to see, you know, more of that just on a personal level, but I'm just, you know, being selfish that way. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, maybe sometime down the road you could have me on and I'll play a little bit. I've just been kind of like Brandon. I've been kind of focusing on the mundane too much and just not really focusing on I want to get back into it, but only to create. I'm not really interested in doing anything more than live streaming from home. I do fine doing what I'm doing. Right. I can make all right money at it in life. I'm not into being around drunk people when I'm sober anymore. People yelling free bird. You know, I almost played Love Light the other year. The Love Light Festival. That would have been sweet, you know. And so I'm hoping to get some nice festivals. If they open it up and we can all walk around naked or something. You know?
Exactly. So we have a question from Melody, and I believe that she was asking, so again, you know, if this is something that you don't look into, by all means, just say so. You know, maybe Melody could always change her question or something, but she's asking, may I ask what my life purpose career-wise is? And she is a Gemini.
Life purpose, career wise. Now, see, this one's weird because we all have strong points, and then and there's no one way for any of us to go. But if you're a nurturer, you might be more inclined to nursing or things like that. But what I see here is the Kanaz runic symbol comes first. Kanaz means passion or fire. It has to do with creation. Next to it is Uruz. Uruz is vital energy, and then the daylight runic symbol. The daylight runic symbol represents bringing hope, relief, clarity, understanding, and then Berkana, the birth rune. Looking at all of this, it really feels artistic, communicative, meaning you would function well in something that you're not only communicating a certain message, but it's creative at the same time, like graphic design, something that's involved with literature, the arts. I mean, I know it's a really difficult thing to get into and make money, but whenever Kanaz is dominant or comes up, it represents someone who has a passion and also wants to create things. And that's what I see here. And because the birthing rune is there as well, it represents bringing something into being that doesn't exist. And so I feel like something in graphic design, art, something where you're creating something tangible for others to see that brings light to people, because the daylight runics. And that could be applied in so many ways, whether you it could be blogging, it could be all kinds of different things, but I really feel creating things, something where you make tangible things and bring your creativity into life will work really well for you. With the Uruz there, I know you have a temper. The Uruz always speaks to that, like really strong energy. So I feel like also the work by yourself will be good for you because of that, because I'm the same way. I have that bull's energy where I butt heads with people. But something where you're working on your own, bringing something into being that also sustains you at the same time.
That's so beautifully put, because it's almost even word for word what I'm being shown as well. I keep being shown that there is pulling of information or ideas or something from an intangible higher source, something that is far away from the physical body. So I immediately associate with that, with some kind of astral or higher realm. And bringing it through, marching it through in a way where it's received emotionally by other people. So I totally agree with this whole art thing. Something that it allows a channel for your own emotions, but it also impacts other people emotionally. And that does feel something artistic and creative. It has to come from your own source. And I can even feel you, Melody, in the jobs that I feel that you've had, or maybe even your current job. I see you getting all sorts of ideas like, oh, this could have been done better. It should have been done this way. Or, I wish I had the power to be able to influence it, because I know this is the way it's supposed to be, right? Or it would have worked better here. And so I feel that energy needs to come out as a more of a solo focus. So I would totally agree with Matt here that some kind of artistic thing would be of huge benefit. It feels like your soul really wants to express that. And the beauty about what we're able to connect with, I think, is that it leaves room for you to be able to turn it into your own. So whether that's blogging or, cutting up blades of grass and pasting them on a canvas and, whatever, it can be totally unique and beautiful to you. I would tell you to look at your astrology chart, your natal chart, and look at where the north node or the true node falls. That might give you also a little bit of inclination of the mediums or the tools that you want to use and work with. If you haven't or don't have any, clue on what to do with that, I can definitely help you out there as well.
So, Melody, the first words that kept coming through to me were communication through expression. Communication through expression. I kept hearing this. And it feels to me that there may be several paths that all kind of connect into one thing. Like, I don't feel like, going from Brandon and Matt's ideas, which I feel very strongly, it may not be one thing. Like, you might not be just in this direction or just in this direction or just in this direction. I feel like a collaboration of, again, it's communication through expression. And I feel like you may at some point develop several things that are all going to combine into one. So it's kind of like, just as an example, maybe you'll get into blogging, but at the same time, there might be several, different forms of or ways of doing it. It could be through YouTube, it could be through a blog or a podcast. Like basically, it's a surrounding different avenues all leading back into one. And this is what I keep feeling. And I love what Matt and Brandon said in regards to that art and expression, because that's exactly what I was getting. Communication through expression is really, it almost feels as though you communicate better through your expression. And again, whether this is through writing or art or, some other sort of form, it feels like this is going to expand out. What I'm going to suggest to you, Melody, is here's the thing, is that when people are looking for career advice, a lot of people, we go into the very basics. We say, maybe I want to be a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer. I want to do this or I want to do that. But what we tend to forget is like there's sub avenues in all of that, right? If you're interested in healing, you don't need to be just a nurse or a doctor. There's 800 different categories in through that. And then those can expand out into different categories. So it really is saying to you is to follow what is truly within your heart. Okay. Truly within your heart. Where do you feel drawn to? And at the point, or at this point, also say to yourself, do I need to make X amount of dollars? Because a lot of times that's what prevents us from moving forward is we get so stuck on, well, I have to make this or I have to make that. But when we're following that true path, after that, money starts really forming for itself. So I hope that that's helped. And Brandon, I guess you're asking, do you have?
Well, I wanted to throw this in there, and I didn't want to cut you off, but I just had this vision of Melody like walking out of like a vehicle, and she's being given praise or accolades for like this piece. And it just gave me this whole film vibe. Like it just gave me this whole idea of like film and having written a story and just receiving all the reactions from it. I totally can see a film vibe. Like when I connect those dots, I see that kind of all over Melody. So it has that similar vibe, perhaps. Maybe not exactly film, and maybe that's not the area you personally want to focus on, but you do say you have an interest in it, that north node and that third house. It's all about, I think of that placement when I think of somebody who has like written a film, is kind of behind the scenes, but has this whole creative masterpiece. And I feel like that could absolutely be that energy. So it could be something to explore. It popped into my mind. That's why I was asking. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I hope that that's helped, Melody. Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, one thing for sure, even though when Canaz is ruling your soul, that fire, it can represent passion, love, oftentimes creativity. You won't be happy until you unite all of the work that you do. And it also represents, just like that, most of the time, cat people, independence, and wanting to do your own thing. And so it's important to follow it even when you don't feel you're arriving at the goal, because I feel this sense of, how do I bring it about? Believe me, all you have to do is get on the path, be honest with yourself, and stay driven. Every success story is all about, you always hear, I lived in my car for a while, or I felt like everything, that's how I ended up here. And I didn't live in my car, but I mean, I've got pretty down. And then this road opened up, and all of my media projects, podcasts, music, all together. So just let it happen one piece at a time, and don't jump from the mundane until you know you've got a leg up, because it's important to also consider sustenance, but there is a jumping off point with the independence. Every one of us can attest to that. You had a point where you had to say, I'm going to take a chance and just do this full time. So don't let the unconventionality of what you want to do stop you from trying, because, otherwise you never reach the goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something. In exactly what you just said, Matt, is like, for me, I was working at his job as like, I've had several jobs, different, all kinds of different things, bartending and the whole bar manager, my own business and stuff. But for a while there, I actually took on a position where I was doing dispatch, taxi dispatch. I was working 6 different cities, all from like one computer, like 6 different screens, like 6 cities all over. It was insane.
So Aquarius of you.
What's that?
So Aquarian of you.
Right? Yeah. Like that's a multitasking at its best right there. Right. And one day I literally just said, I looked at my coworker and I said, I am so freaking done with this. I just want to quit, because I was already making better money, doing this, but you're always scared to leave that stable job. It's like that stable environment. I can't get a eye off of this, and I can't do this, and I can't, how do I do this? Like, you don't have that job security when you're on your own. But at the same time, I was just so done. And I looked at my coworker and I said, I'm done. I got to leave this environment. I am just done with this. Literally the very next day, they had to change my hours for work, simply because there was, some whatever, happened. And the hours that they created were not compatible with what I was able to work. And I was able to be laid off. So I still had all of my benefits. I still had, like to some degree, a sense of security. I was able to get unemployment, for a little while until my business started building up. And it was boom, literally not even 24 hours later. So you have to be in that place where you're willing and ready to just say, look, it is time. It is time for me, and I got to follow this dream. I got to follow this path that's being presented in front of me. And so much can change just from that, sense of taking the risk, being ready to make that move forward. So we'll take one more. This is for Melissa. I hope Melissa's here. She's just asking about her future finances. So maybe we can quickly take a look into that.
So
and then
like
that's going to be the last for today. Sorry?
Looks like she's a Libra, I think, October 13th.
I believe so, yes. And you're so welcome, Melody. I hope that that's helped. Yeah.
Well, one of the first things that I feel is there's dead. The Aok rune from the Anglo-Saxon rune road shows up. And this one is death, rebirth. And it means problem solving. It means that which is against you is not as strong as that which is for you. Interestingly enough, it falls right next to Feok. And Feok, in traditional representation, it's like Fehu. It represents cattle. It represents sustenance. Because if in the ancient times, if you had cattle, you had everything. You had bones, sinew, skin, everything you needed. So I know there's dead here. Right away when I see the Aok rune, it represents being in a place where you don't know if it feels like you're crushing under the weight of it. And the chain rune is there. It's the same as Canaz. That means it's burning you up. And I don't feel it's in a total positive way. Like you've gotten to a place where you feel like maybe there's no way out. Tying that in even to what happened last time. This is how I ended up here. I hit the bottom, man. It was so bad. I couldn't even use the bathroom in my own house. I couldn't afford to fix it. It needed to be fixed. So sometimes I had to go outside. It was really, really bad. And I want to tell you, because I emerged from that kind of suddenly, seeing this, and the one rune is there. One is Wunjo. It represents abundance. The way the rune poem describes it is all these people happily feasting at a table. It means you're going to get out of that place, and even before the end of the year, start finding ways to get out of that and to grow more sustenance, because that's what Fehu is all about, sustenance. You need to be sustained. And I really feel you getting into a good place this year and getting a plan to pull out of that. But I can tell you that usually just before that happens is a dark night of the soul moment. And that's when I finally decided that I'm just not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to try to push for something else. And that's how I got here and also fixed most of my problems. That's where I see you at now, feeling like you're buried. That death, rebirth rune, it feels like in a way you're dying inside. You're going to come out of it. It also represents finding your legs again, especially near sustenance. So don't feel like you're not going to get there. Steps, even this year, I feel like whenever Fehu is there, there's positive reinforcements coming. And the one season represents harvest to many people too. So I feel like when you get to the harvest season this year, after the autumn equinox, I feel like you're going to start seeing the rewards and have a better plan toward working towards more financial security. And that's what I feel here.
That's, I think, beautifully put. I keep seeing those steps as well. I'll get into that in a moment. But the one thing I keep being shown, though, Melissa, is this. There's something that's like causing a drain in your own energy. And they keep showing me that there's like either too much importance or communication with other people, maybe chatter or information that is just not fully relevant or fueling you how you need to. And so energy is kind of being spent in bad places. And I think that's a direct relation to where your finances are. And so I really want you to start thinking about your energy as currency, value, dollars, and where you put that value, where you put that attention is going to equal something as, as focused as money. It's time to reframe, I think, your view of it and your perspective of it. And you need to start thinking about where, my crown is tingling hard right now. I don't know if you're listening, but something's happening. Like somebody's getting it. You need to reframe that thinking about, okay, my time is valuable. Where I put that, it's going to equal direct value. And Matt is absolutely right. What Spirit keeps showing me is that this is going to be a steady climb, and you are going to have to be tenacious with it. Don't be looking, in my opinion, what I keep seeing here is to not be looking for one, big check that cashes everything out. This is going to happen in incremental steps, and you have to take time to be able to chip away at it. They are also showing me that there is a male that's likely to come through that has some kind of opportunity for you. And it hits when you kind of are starting to balance out. And there's somebody who comes in that kind of gives you like this little boost of like, oh, you've been doing such a good job. Here's a beautiful windfall. Remember, like does attract like, but you do have to take, I think, those incremental steps.
I absolutely love the way that you both picked up on this energy. And I don't know how much more exactly I have to add, but there is one thing that keeps hitting me in the chest is that I keep feeling, Melissa, is that you're doing for others as opposed to doing for yourself in some way. It almost feels as though your energy is being expanded in a way that is not being fulfilling or satisfying for yourself. It almost feels like, I feel like you're settling for something, and it might be that you're maybe selling product at less than what it's worth, or maybe perhaps you're giving too much away of something, but it just feels like there's a settling energy that I keep picking up on. And I just keep feeling, because I keep hearing these words: know your worth, know your worth, know your worth, expand on your worth, know your worth, don't settle for less. And this very much maybe even something that Matt and Brandon had kind of felt through their readings, like there's this change, there's this harvest coming, as Matt was saying. And I just keep feeling like, know your worth. You do not need to settle. You don't need to minimize your product, your brand, your whatever it is. This could be even a desk job if you're doing a desk job, but don't minimize your own self-worth. Don't settle. This is what keeps coming through to me. And I do feel this change. It's interesting, because I keep getting like, come into August, September, and it feels like there's this change that keeps coming around, because I keep seeing like the leaves changing, like literally changing color. But I'm also hearing something about October. So it feels like a progression. September, August, September, October. And it just feels like October is where you come out of this place that you may be feeling, that things aren't progressing. It just feels like this change. But again, stop. You can't settle. Work on allow your self-worth to come through in whatever project or whatever it is that you're trying to move toward. So I hope that's helped. I think, guys, we're going to end the show now, but we just wanted to say thank you so much to Matt. How can they reach you? So through hawkmoonvisions.com, is that correct?
Yes, and I want to thank you guys too. You can find me just about everywhere. Hawkmoonvisions.com. I also do the Hawk Moon Visions podcast, although I've slacked a little on releasing new episodes. There should be a new one coming out soon called Mystic Spirit 9. And so the Hawk Moon Visions podcast is in every outlet: iHeart, iTunes, every outlet. where there's a podcast. On Spotify, you can find that. And we're always at the website. If we're not there, and it's between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, usually you can submit like a request there, and or text. There's a number there. If you don't mind, if you want to keep your information completely private, you can go through the ClickAdvisor stuff. But just text us and see if we're available, and we'll usually come on because we're working in different places. Sometimes we can't be online in 5 different places.
Right.
So you can nudge us.
That could cause some issues for sure. Just stay on the line for a few seconds, Matt. You don't need to click off. I know sometimes guests get confused and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, I'm out of here. See ya." Click off. But
you've given us some really beautiful insights today, Matt. Really appreciate that. If there's any lasting impression you wanted our viewers to have, please, feel free to be able to give that to them.
For me, I see life as an adventure. Stop always, even though people come to us for answers, embrace the adventure that's not knowing sometimes exactly how things will come about. But focus more on the internal aspects of your spiritual growth, because when you're in that place, no matter what happens to you, and oftentimes if you don't go into that place, life throws something at you that you didn't want. And it's not to punish you, it's just part of the experience of life. Always be in that place of growth personally through all your endeavors. That way you can embrace life. Is full of so many ups and downs, death, and this and that, and loss of lovers. So if you're working on your growth more than what you want from, I don't like to use the term, but your fleshly desires, the things that we think we want, but we don't need. If you start focusing on more the internal things, I don't like to use the word spirit always. Some people are more inclined to just see the mind. You'll find that your life will be more fulfilling, and embrace those hard times. That's what I usually work with in coaching, is bringing out the darkness, almost kind of like a soul retreat, because we lose pieces of ourselves every time we go through heavy trauma. And it's often why we can't put ourselves back together. So allow yourself to feel those things and that darkness so that you can heal and grow from it, rather than always seeking something that's so. I feel like if we seek a life that doesn't have any friction, we never grow, we never accelerate, we never accomplish great things. You have to run headlong into the friction. And that's my advice.
What an amazing way to put it. Thank you. that just hits, right? Because it's like,
absolutely.
I don't know. It's such a different perspective, and I absolutely love it because I think that's one thing I love about the show is that we get to see so many and hear and learn so many different perspectives and ways to look at things. And, it gets us out of that shell of this is how it has to be. No, it doesn't. Listen, what a beautiful way to express it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brandon, people can reach you at
thedreamteacher.com. You can shoot me a message, connect, set up an appointment. I'll get you sorted out. Thedreamteacher.com.
Beautiful. And guys, you can reach me at oracleintuitions.com. You can contact me through Facebook, through my website, or through Instagram. And make sure that you subscribe and click like. Definitely subscribe to the channel, whether you're on Oracle Intuitions or whether you're watching this through I Want to Believe channel or on Facebook, whatever. Make sure that you go to Oracle Intuitions and click subscribe, because we do randomly, I do provide tarot readings on here, and we do these shows as every Wednesday. We do another reading show at 6:00 Mountain Time. And we also have live interviews every Sunday, normally at 2:00 p.m. So thank you so much, guys. We truly appreciate you tuning in, and take care. Have a very blessed week.
All right. Thank you.